Hello and welcome listeners and viewers. This is me Tanveer Singh along with my co-host Sakshi Sehgal और आज हम लेके आ रहे हैं Vips Rhythm का The OG podcast series The Industry Insights और आप सबका स्वागत है to the premiere episode for the same.
It is now time to update you all with some fascinating insights from our own industry experts who are live and in stereo recording with us today.
On that very note, Sakshi, it's time to have our guest of honor on board. Making her way through the nuances of script writing and all the essential details of what everything is required in a working media house. None other than from Dice Media, commissioning producer Deeba Khan. Welcome on board, Deeba.
Hi. Welcome on board, Deeba. So it's so good to have you on board, Deeba. I'm sure our listeners who are mainly college-going students or budding media professionals would surely benefit out of the conversation we're going to have today.
I hope so. You're very right, Sakshi. और मतलब students को तो जो फायदा होगा and as I was talking before we went on air and recorded this, that it has been such a jittery moment for me for having you with this entire month of communication and the way you have been in touch and been sporadic and spontaneous. I would say that sporadicity hasn't been felt ever, but that constant communication of yours, and for mass comm students communication is the key. And you have exceptionally, unlocked the key to our doors. So thank you so much for being on board.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
तो शुरू करते हैं listeners और viewers हमारे question answer session से, जो कि नहीं होगा इतना boring, इसी guarantee लेते हैं हम. So Deeba, like as we just briefed you that you are dealing with stories, pitches on a very daily basis. मतलब it's like a continuous thing. मतलब हम एक दिन में इतने सारे शोज नहीं देखते और आप तो जो शोज बनने वाले होते हैं उससे पहले ही आपको काफी कुछ उनके बारे में पता लग जाता है कि ये पिचेस हैं, ये सब कुछ है. So how does that feel? Like does that at times give you a sense of कि यार you might maybe overskip or miss something important in someone's speech because the influx is so much? So how you create that spontaneity and that smoothness in your mind that I have to cater every content as a new content?
Honestly, I won't take the complete credit for it because when you are looking, content creation is clearly a creator's medium. Every piece of content, every story that you hear is unique. There are only n number of stories in this world, but the way you narrate them, the perspective that you bring with them is what makes them unique. So for me, I don't think that confusion's ever there. But if it is, I am a very boring person, so I go by the book. Schedule my day, figure out, break down stories. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. At the end of the day, it's what the story brings. It is how engaging that the story becomes is what keeps you.
That's very true, Deeba. I just wanted to ask, can you differentiate between a good story and a bad story? And like, if yes, how do you do it?
I don't think there are bad stories ever. There are no stories that are bad. Like, it's just perspective. For example, you have a story that you've been living all your life, right? That is your story. I have a story that I've been living all my life. That is my story. I may not be completely on board with your story, but that doesn't make your story bad. You may not be completely on board with my story. It doesn't make my story bad. It's individualistic. It's an individual opinion. It's a very subjective thing. You can't, for example, you take okay, I'm going to give a very, very random example without taking names. You take a movie which may be a cult today, but back when it released, nobody liked it. But it slowly grew onto you. So it's just perspective that matters. You can't really calling a story a bad story is actually insulting the creator and the story, and that's absolutely not fair.
Like, we got your point, but I think when a story meets a corporate setup, so if there's no bad stories, as you say, so like, what is the difference between a sellable and a non-sellable story then?
See, at the end of the day, if you come down to a sellable or a non-sellable story, it is a very metric-driven process, to be honest. For example, over the last year and a half since the pandemic struck, if you see whatever platforms you see, the consumer trends or the consumption trends have changed. So the only reason why a story may not fit into the whole sellable spectrum is because the demand is not present for that type of story. It doesn't make the story bad. It simply means that the demand, right now there's an extreme influx of that genre or that category of stories, but that doesn't mean the story is bad. It's just that time will come For example, if you say The Queen's Gambit, it took 10 years to make that show. It was rejected so many times. But do you think it's a bad show? Like, I can say I binge watched it in one night. I'm pretty sure you guys binge watched it as soon as possible. But that's what brings me back to your older question and my point. The story wasn't bad. It's just the time wasn't right. The timing needs to match. That's pretty much it. So any story can sell, but the timing needs to match.
And on that very note, Deeba, like, when you talk about the timeliness of a story, so I think that also depends on how the screenwriter or the story creator is approaching different media houses for the production. So when we talk about your organization in particular, which is Dice Media, and you being an essential part of this mega conglomerate of media production and like content production company, so how does Dice deal with these situations, to like cater the good content and those who can have a potential timeline, tell them how to wait and nurture the stories, how you actually shape the stories at Dice Media in order to become what they are today? And as we have seen a numerous amount of quality content, I would say, coming out of Dice Media, so how that journey takes place and what you play an important part in it, how you help to become that good to become better.
So first of all, thank you so much for all the kind words for Dice Media. Feels really good to hear that. But coming to it, Dice Media as such identifies as a digital entertainment company. Our motto is to solve boredom. Pocket Aces, the parent company, Pocket Aces, solve boredom. So when we create stories, each and every member of the team is very closely involved with the storytelling process, with the narrative process, with the development process. Now coming to picking the stories, we always make sure that it's a win-win situation, not just for us, but also for the creators. Because at the end of the day, any writer, any creator has spent his hard time, his blood, his sweat in creating this baby that he's pitching to us, right? A story is nothing less than a baby. You're pitching it to us, you're extremely attached to it. It shouldn't hit a point where you're just stuck. Kya ho raha hai? So we always make sure that it's a win-win situation and the writer feels comfortable narrating that story and sharing that story with us. So when we pick stories, we always look for stories that will lead, with which we have complete conviction in, stories that will kind of meet that narrative of win-win. No one feels left out. And because say for that, like let me give you an example. If say you pitch a story that we have 4-5 similar concepts in, like you pitch a story in a genre and we have 4-5 similar concepts in the same genre. Picking that story would be a good idea because it's a beautiful story, but will we be able to do justice to it right now? That's not fair to you or for us, right? Because if you've written a story, it needs to be narrated to the entire world. So we make sure that whenever we're narrating stories, we are narrating, we are also spreading joy, that story, that feeling of joy that you get when you see a story of finish line. So having fair practices, ethical practices, a win-win narrative is what we go for, along with obviously perfect, great storytelling and all the hard work that goes in. If you ever talk to any of the Dice team members, they'll tell you the amount of hours every team member puts in behind every show, because at the end of the team effort.
So with that, I just wanted to ask Deeba, when you're working in a corporate setup or like in a working environment, does creativity gets compromised or like gets hampered, in a corporate setup basically? So is it like that?
Well, luckily, Pocket Aces is a beautiful place for all creative professionals because before everything, story, the quality of content takes precedence over everything else. So creativity definitely does not get hampered. That is something I can vouch for. So yeah, luckily I've been really, really, really fortunate that ways.
All right, Deeba. And with this question answer segment, I think now it's time to move into a little bit of quick responses, because agar aaj ke time pe attention span jo hai hamari audience ka has shifted to short form content, and we thought why not to have a few questions to Deeba which have very short answers, which are like rapid, might be fiery, and would be like the quickest thing that comes to your mind. So the statements that I am
abhi rapid fire nahi khel payi, I'm gonna jump off. Bye.
No, but like, you know, like you have the time, but obviously we'll make it seem that it was very fiery and rapid, but like you can take the advantage of this being a pre-recorded session and you can take as much time as you want. But again, coming to the jinx of it. So I think the segments, the questions that Sakshi and I'm going to ask you, the only thing that you have to keep in mind is the answers that comes first to your mind. Like, don't just overthink it or, you know, just make too much context around it. Seedha, keh dijiye jo dimag mein aa raha hai, like fastest thing first. So my first question is, the top 3 tips or suggestions for making sure an audience is engaged throughout the story.
Structural sense. The story has to be really well structured. Have conviction in what you're saying, because once you're convinced, your audience is going to be convinced. And just go with your gut. Have faith in yourself. Go with your gut.
Go with your gut. All right then. Cool. So after also coming to your personal productive and, you know, the functionality, which part of the day, Deeba, you are most productive? Like you are a morning person, an evening person, afternoon person, 24/7 active person. What kind of person are you?
I am an insomniac. I think that should answer the question.
But like still, if you have like categorized, you know, like the maximum time like you work out and, you know, like you give quality work all the day, but still, like which part of the day?
It's difficult to put down, because for me, once I start a project, till the time it's not over, I can't sit in peace. So if I break it down into ye ghanta hai din ka and I'll be perfect at it, will be a big fat lie. So I'm not going to do that. There is no specific time.
So basically, you're an all-day, all-nighter, all-in. Like if you have a project, so it's like a project by project individuals at least. Like calm, like, you know, still work is not done. So
work
like
is at home. At the end of the day. Work is worship at the end of the day.
All right. On that note, looking back on the last 5 years of your career, what's the highlight, like in total, like which has been that one moment throughout your like 5-6 years of media industry that you have set up? So, kaun sa ek aisa moment hai that you have changed things for you within the industry, despite joining Pocket Aces, please?
No, it is practically related to Pocket Aces. May 2nd, 2019, I get a call. I've been hired for Pocket Aces, and that's pretty much it. That was a highlight for it.
So like, what was the emotion, Deeba? Like how you felt? Because like, I can understand that, you know, when you have a mail which has congratulations, you have been selected, shortlisted, it gives you jitters. So like, what was you when you got that official email that you are now part of 3 aces in one pocket, which is AKA Pocket Aces, a very prevalent name in the media organization. So how was it?
Okay, this is very funny. So usually when you get a call that, hey, we are making you an offer, and you kind of get into the whole, so what is the offer? I remember getting this call that, hey, Deeba, we're pleased to offer you this role. I was like, okay, so when do I have to join? When can I join? And that was just, okay, you don't want to know what your offer is? You don't want to know what we are providing? I was like, no, just tell me when I have to join and I'll join. But when I hung up and when I joined, I remember I met with the HR representative who had given me that call. She's like, this was the funniest part of your call. You didn't ask anything. 3 minutes, I am this, this is the role. And all you said was, when do I have to join? That's pretty much, that was the highlight of my 5 years, I think, last 5 years, where I was like, chalo, ho gaya. Because I had been trying to join Pocket Aces for a very long time. It was like a dream company for me. So I was like, okay, you've made me an offer. I am coming in, period. Nothing more.
Cool. I think that dreams do come true, Deeba, isn't it?
Definitely. I remember I was singing the Flintstones title track for the next 10 minutes and dancing all over the place.
All right. At the best moment of your life. Can feel it. Who do you look up into this in media industry? Like, who's your role model, ideal? Like, who, or, you know, like maybe a person that whose work you're influenced by the most? Can be both global, international, national, local, whatever.
One person who I worship, also because I am too obsessed with the content this man creates, is Michael Schur. I think self-proclaimed the biggest fan of The Office under the sun.
All right, very classy choice, I must say. All right, this was the end of rapid fire round. Over to you, Sakshi.
So very fiery answers, Deeba, hands down. So now we have a different segment, which is Would You, wherein I'll be providing you with 2 options and you have to pick one which suits you the best, okay? First question, would you rather read a book, watch a movie, or listen to a podcast?
Read a book.
That's great. Have a photographic memory or have an IQ of 200?
Photographic memory.
I picked that too. Binge watch Netflix or go on a hike?
Binge watch. I mean, I'm a couch potato. There's a reason I'm doing this role.
That's great. Okay. So have a free world tour opportunity or never get to pay for food at restaurants ever?
Wow, that's a tricky one. I love traveling. I haven't had the chance to travel and I love food. Can I just take a mix of the two? Please?
Yeah, I mean,
give me a mix of the two.
It's the last question, so you can.
Cool. So I pick both.
Perfect.
All right.
Over to you, Tanveer.
Thank you so much, Sakshi. And I think, would you rather end it with all the options? The last question ended with, picking up both the options, which is pretty natural and honest, I would say, Deeba. And before we let you completely go off this panel, as I mentioned earlier, that this podcast is specifically a student-specific program where students from all across the Delhi University Circle and IPU and the IPU University Circle have joined us and are listening to us. So we would like to know from you, Deeba, as a professional, what is that one insight you as a professional can share with the budding students who are making their way to enter the screenwriting, script production, story pitching, the entire content industry? Like, what is that one piece of insight you would like to share?
It's a three-pronged thing. One, have faith in yourself. Go with your gut, as I mentioned before. Two, be open to learning. Be open to feedback, because every feedback, even if it's not constructive, it's going to help you learn. Three, do not stop yourself. You're not going to win at the first go. Like, you're going to fail so many times. But eventually, all those failures will teach you something, and you'll learn, and you'll get up, and you'll start running, and you'll start flying. So definitely these three things. Do not stop, no matter what happens. Because life happens when you exactly don't expect it to happen.
That's true.
All right then. And I think the originality in your answers, the O in your originality answer stands for optimism today, Deeba, because it was very positive and optimistic and a very nice way to end this entire conversation. Go with your gut and never stop. That's what Deeba believes and says and suggests to all our students for listening us to right now. And on that very note, Deeba, thank you for being there on board. It was an immense pleasure to have you. And I hope that you would have felt the same. And I know you don't do on camera a lot, but it's a pleasure that you today, set up this entire thing and we were able to communicate with you through a Zoom setup as well.
It's been my pleasure talking to you guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Deeba. And to all our listeners, जो हमें आज सुन रहे हैं, this is just the beginning episode, as I said, because Sakshi and I are going to be back with some more interesting guests under the tagline podcast series, Industry Insights, valuable insights just to you by us. Thank you so much as we bid adieu your final goodbye, but only to come back again and welcome you all in the next episode with another guest.